you go.
There we go. Normal.
Yeah.
Let's go with normal.
That looks good, dude. Looks great, man. So
tell me.
Oh man. So like, dude, today I kind of freaked out. Did you watch the Ryan Bledsoe interview?
Yeah, after you told me to you sent me the link.
Yeah. I was like, holy shit. How was it? The synchronicity, man. You talk about it. That was spot on, right? Like,
yeah, I know, mate. Like, I think that, I don't know, it's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I find it very interesting because, like, the fact that he was talking about Jim Semivan coming to see them.
Right.
Jim Semivan's a Gnostic, isn't he? Like, self-proclaimed Gnostic.
I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I know. There's some photos from a while back where he was in the church, their local church, when he came to visit them, and he's kind of got his hands up, like, and they shared that. Well, look at Jim. He's like getting down with us at our local church.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what this is when I first started to hear about the Bledsoes.
And you're like,
I remember looking at it, just going, so let's have a look. So Jim Semivan's a CIA agent,
okay? Right.
Or ex-CIA agent, and he's going down to visit the Bledsoes, and he's going to their church, and he's getting down with it, because he's a believer.
Right.
So then, a year and a half goes by, or whatever, or a year, and now he's given an interview talking about, and he mentions how about, and it's true, it made me feel a bit bad actually, because in my head, I straight away go to the conspiracy theory. I'm like, look at them, they're running a secret religious cult mission out in the woods there. I've tracked it down because the address matches.
Right.
The bare truth is, in the interview, he's going, he says quite a lot about the fact that he's from a certain type of church, and the interviewer says, oh, well, I was brought up a Mennonite.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, that's like one step up from us. So you start looking at the fact it's different over here, like those kinds of extreme, well, not extreme, but you don't
secular, like the secularness of it doesn't exist really in England, like
exactly.
It does here. Right.
You have Christianity, and obviously you have it broken down into, you might have some Baptists, and you might have Catholics, and that sort of, and Church of England, Protestants.
Right.
But it's not like you've got like just,
you don't have like Mennonites, right?
Churches.
You don't have like, you don't have Amish, right? There's no Amish in England, right? You guys don't have the Amish.
Not unless they're out on their little trip where they're allowed out for a year.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to run into a pocket. Like there's we go 2.5 hours south here, man. And there's like, the signs that are like caution signs on the side of the road. It's literally a picture of a horse and a buggy. It's like, because there's like that. I mean, because there's big pockets of areas where there's, there's straight Amish, where it's all Amish, there's like no electricity. There's like straight horse and buggy. And it's like,
I mean, that for us is something that you don't see here. Like,
right.
I mean, you'll find places there. Well, it just isn't a big enough country for little subcultures
to exist.
It just isn't. I guess because it gets stamped out by normality. Which is kind of sad, really.
Or they just come over here.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, these faiths started a lot of the time here.
Right.
Well, those offshoots of Christianity anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just it's bizarre, but I mean, I think Ryan had some huge balls for doing what he did, on that interview. Like totally. I mean, like he was just like, I'm going to catch shit, but but I think he's really intelligent. I think he was really articulate in what he was saying.
I'm very surprised, man.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not surprised. He's clearly intelligent anyway. But actually seeing him speak, and I don't know, smart guy. He's got, he's eloquent. Like, he's
definitely
well spoken. He's got his own viewpoint on it, and I like the fact as well that he'd obviously, he wasn't being a mouthpiece for his father. He was just saying, "This is me as a grown up, telling my story about how it went down." You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is great. I mean, because he had an experience as a kid. I mean, that's a lot for a kid to go through, like, and when he was sharing it, I mean, I know he had a lot to go through, but I mean, like, just think about that. I mean, people get bullied and shit enough. I mean, all the other stuff that he had to go through, and then his own family, and you know what I mean? Like that, like, he was talking about that whole double life kind of thing where, they don't even talk about it with their family, and like, it's just like, it's got to be real rough for you to, and then not even having like the experience himself. I mean, he told me, he's like, where he said in the interview, I said, obviously he's like, he wanted to have it. And it was until the time it was like 5 years until he was like 18 or something, until he had his first real like solo experience or whatever with it, and it's like,
So you must be, I mean, the psychological, well, the sort of the doubt you'd be having about your own normality when your dad suddenly switches. And it's interesting because it's only an hour ago I watched it, so I finished watching it. And it's interesting because it's like a wake-up call, it's a bit of a warning for people too.
Right.
This stuff, like, yeah, I think we touched on this before, but it can totally consume you, man.
Right.
Now, obviously, what happened to Chris Bledsoe, it utterly consumed him.
Right.
To the extent where when you get that little bit of insight where it's like, well, the kids are like seeing their dad going through what appears to be some kind of psychotic break. And
totally. Yeah.
His parents writing it off as drugs or, well, pot.
Yeah.
Then his wife saying it's demonic. Like, can you imagine?
And he's got this sickness the whole time, and he's like basically dying of this, like his illness too, the whole time. I mean, it's like, it's just a complete mind melt, you know? And then, you know, good for him that he came out the way he did. You know what I mean? Honestly, like that could send you into a completely different, he could have took a left turn and went way down did the wrong or a different path, you know? And so big credit for him on that.
Absolutely. And Ryan, you know, it's interesting, especially after what we talked about, I have been talking about with the idea that this could easily be a long game. Some very, very smart players and some very dirty, not dirty, but dark players that you read about. I mean, these CIA types that he's talking about, and these slightly darker NASA types that came into their lives or are in their lives. Right. You know, that's scary shit, man. Like,
no, it is, man. I mean, maybe kind of freak out a little bit. Like, honestly, dude, like, you know, because in our first talk, you know, and I've said it a couple times, like, you know, I didn't want to come out because I was afraid of that shit. Because I've grew up with, like, knowing that you talk too much, man, you get that knock on the door, and it's either a, you know, nice stern warning, and then if you don't listen, you know, it'll be a lot worse, you know. I mean, he basically reiterated those fears, you know, in that thing, and that's real. Like, there's some dark, sinister forces to this shit.
Well, when he starts getting, I mean, and the fact that, you know, I touched on it briefly with me. When you start to follow it back, and you start to see what people are interested in behind the scenes. Like when he talks about the fact that there's a group of people that worship this entity,
right,
or what they believe this entity to be, and then touches on the idea, he says the Illuminati. So there's this idea, I mean, Illuminati in whatever sense of the word he's talking about, but a very powerful secret people behind all this,
right? The cabal, right?
They're worshipping what they think this goddess is, or this deity is, or what did he say, a divine being? So, but they, at the same time, are quite scary. But the reason they find out about it is because the message of this entity is incredibly important to what they practice as their beliefs. So when you start to hear about that and you go, right, so basically you just said, even though really I can't prove anything about what he says in terms of who he hangs around with, you get the photographs, but they are all ex-CIA.
Right.
There is a difference.
Well, people say that too, but then there's always, I've always heard too, that you're never really out. You know what I mean? Like, everybody says you're not, I mean, you're not, like, you're out, like, you remember, you're not on the payroll per se, but you're like, I don't think you just get a free pass to do whatever the hell you want.
No.
I think you're still in, and you're just not, I mean, you lose a little bit of the coverage or whatever, right? But you gain a whole bunch more. I mean, I've heard other stories about that too. Like, after you get out, you didn't have enough clearance to get enough, you know, like technical clearance, like in the military, like you don't have, you know, need to know basics, but then after you're out, you get like way more than you need to know, or, you know, a lot more information. But then I don't really think it ends. I think that you're basically in the pocket the whole time. I don't think you just end up not being the guy one day, you know?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And the fact that the stuff that you learn, I guess, in that service, if you're in the position to learn stuff that's incredibly sensitive, you're not just going to run out and tell everybody. Yeah. It's not like
there's no end date on that shit. It's just forever, right?
Forever, yeah. And if someone wanted to try and extract it from you, like, you know, you sort of wonder, don't you, as well? Like, you got like this private company of dudes like TTSA, hanging out in their mansions or beach houses or whatever it is they do, wherever it is they live. I don't even know, but like, and essentially you've got one of them, like Lou Elizondo, saying he's, you know, been part of a secret UFO, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But these people suddenly are very public. But if you were a Chinese espionage agent or a Russian espionage agent,
You'd be all over
to
them.
get into these people's pockets. I wouldn't you want to be wanting to like? Do you know what I'm saying? I don't
Yo,
know.
no, totally. Yeah, man. I'm sure.
Like, this kind of open nature of it as well. Like it's an interesting one, man. Like I wonder what the dangers to those sorts of people are too with that sort of stuff.
Totally. And I think, and I said it, and somebody was like, one of the comments I just made recently was somebody was talking about, if Bigelow, had all this stuff and, what were they really doing at Skinwalker Ranch, and if ATIP was there and, that was all part of it, or AWASP or whatever, one of them there was there, and I had heard, and I don't remember where, so this is probably just, hearsay or whatever, but that there was other countries involved interested in it too. Right. So there was other countries involved in the Skinwalker ranch thing, right? So like, what if it was maybe a lot of it was us, and I say us, I mean the U.S. just trying to sort out what other countries were trying to get their noses in there too, and then figure out their tactics and techniques and what their little rings of people were, and like who they had their pockets, their hands in their pockets and all that to kind of, basically keep it a tighter knit, because what you just kind of. It's almost like leaving, feeding deer. You throw some corn out there, and eventually the deer start coming up and eating it. And your end goal is to shoot the deer, right? So it's like, what is that what they're doing? Trying to out everybody that's got. I mean, that could be a part of it. That whole disinfo. I mean, I think Lou was a whole, counterintelligence, right? So you just kind of figure out what the other intelligence agencies are trying to get at the same time as trying to protect your own. So,
well, I mean, really, like if you go in with that sort of speculation, it is exactly what they were saying. It's like, what are counterintelligence going to be doing? They're going to be going, what have they got? Have they got this stuff? How's it going to benefit them in terms of a war sense, like their priority on the battlefield,
right,
or superiority on the battlefield? So it becomes that, and I can understand that element of it. Mm-hmm. The flip side of it, like this new narrative that comes alongside it. Because that is the narrative that if you're the average dude and you turn on Fox or CNN and Lou Elizondo's been on, or Chris Mellon appears,
it's a threat. We need to take care of it. It's a threat.
Suits with an ex-Department of Defense and that sort of stuff. And then you've got the other flip side of it, which is kind of like gods. There's gods, and in Greece there was spiritual entities, and mysticism, and let's hark back to the days of the Babylon, the Sumerians, and that ain't going to hit the news. Like, what China going to want from that? Okay, well, what have we got? We've got some new age theories, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, that's being sold at the same level of truth as the potential threat to the USA. Right. So what is your TTSA? I mean, I just actually read, before I came on with you, that Lou Elizondo's leaving TTSA. Is that right?
I don't know. He never actually said that in that interview. I mean, he just said that, they're shifting gears from first to second, and, that he was never part of the entertainment division. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I would think there definitely would have to be since it's a public company, there would have to be a press release or something, or, I don't think he's on the board. I'm not sure about that, but I think they would, if there was some kind of departure or something like that, I think that's part of one of those SEC regulations that you have to like announce when somebody's a majority shareholder or somebody's leaving. So I don't know. I think it's just kind of one of those things where it's going to be different, I think that's just another thing to keep people thinking, it could be completely spun up, to keep it talking.
He's an interesting guy. Like, and I'd be sad to see him like kind of not be part of that, but I suppose, what would it leave you with? It would leave you with, how put off and Tom DeLonge. Big name wise. And
there's a list of other people on there, man, that nobody ever talks about. I mean, those are the guys that are out in front, but I mean, if you ever go on their site and see the list of people that are on there's a bunch of people that are, less key, and they're still ex-military, ex-intelligence kind of stuff in there. But it's weird. No. I was just thinking that what I was going to get at with it is like, the thing that kind of shook me with the Ryan thing was like, he went all the way and he was just like, I'm going to say it, there's like and it's kind of like what Lou's saying when he were in Chris Mellon and some of the other interviews, that you have some of these people that are like at the top echelon of some of these agencies that are they think it's satanic. They think it's like evil, and they don't want to do anything about it. Right. But the flip side of that was what Ryan Bledsoe said was like, there's that, but then there's the other side of it. That's like, the evil Satan worshipers. I think he literally said Satan, you know, like, because they told him Satan and God were the same thing, and there was no God. And like, there's like, and he said the Bilderbergers, which is a huge group that, I mean, I know through years of research, you probably know who they are. And it's like, you're talking about people's worst nightmare kind of shit. Like if that's really it, then there's like that real, if you go into the Secret Machines book, you know, the, whatever Tom DeLonge calls it, the, you know, that company that's like, you know, it's not really a company. It's like, if that shit's real, then that's something to be worried about.
Well,
I mean, personally for us and everybody, you know?
Well, sorry, mate. Hang on.
Yeah.
You touched on two things there. All right. First one was that Ryan had said that these people had come along and had said, you know, you do realize that God and Satan are the same thing. Yeah?
Right.
They're one and the same. Yeah?
Right.
Well, that's Gnosticism, isn't it? That's Carl Jung. That's basically pagan, like a huge part of that duality.
Yeah, as above, so below. I mean, it's Hermeticism. It's all that. It's really
Absolutely.
it's kind of all the same thing. Right.
Yeah, and I guess Freemasonry touches on that too. There's that balance. Now, you don't probably use bringing the word Satan and so on, but
no, right. We don't.
I don't know. That's for you to tell me. But like,
I haven't heard anybody say Satan anywhere.
Exactly.
It could be. I don't know.
Exactly, and there's plenty of different secret societies, whether they're Freemasons or not.
Right.
But like, to whoever these guys are, like when he says that, you know, like we were saying before, he's eloquent, mate. He's a smart guy. He's intelligent. But he's also a product of his environment.
Totally.
Which it sounds like it comes from a very religious background.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you try to equate Satan with God, it's quite a tough one. Like, you know,
totally. It doesn't, and it doesn't ring true to him at all. He can't process that. I mean, just for that kind of, you know, but he seems like the kind of dude that's educated and, you know, like you said, eloquent, and he knows, you know, more of the world than just that religion. I mean, you know, that's just not, you know, that's what it is. And he even said that, you know, even his dad doesn't say it out loud, but his dad doesn't say, you know, that it could be just the Christian God. You know, it's God in the sense of, you know, a supreme being. It's not like, you know, and I thought it was pretty telling, you know, because, you know, that flips the whole thing, you know, that it could be something else. And then he touched on that whole, like the Trinity thing. I mean, he hit all of it, man. He hit that, you know, it was the Father, the Son, and the Mother, and that she was removed from the Trinity, you know, that was the goddess. And then he dropped Hathor. Then he says Hathor.
I know.
Did you hear him say that?
Yeah. No, I don't, but he was quite quick on saying that, wasn't he? And it was just onwards. Like, it's a weird one. Like, cause I don't know. I mean, like that name's obviously out there.
Yeah.
People do know that name's, you know, who've been in this long enough.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it's real or not, but it seems to strike a chord with a lot of stuff, man. Like, if you're interested in this world, when you take it down the sort of the ancient mysteries and ancient gods, the idea of like the ancient builder races and that kind of thing, Hathor sits right at the top of all that, really, as we've talked about.
Yeah, and then, you know, is she coming back? I mean, she's always, from what they're saying, that she's always been here, you know, and
and that's it. Is she essentially just us? I mean, when you get into like the idea of the oneness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the fact is, all we are is eyes for an entity to witness the beauty of its own creation.
Right.
And whether that beauty is something that's apparently ugly or it's apparently beautiful, it doesn't matter, because that's the God and that's the Satan. You need that duality to be able to measure how beautiful your creation has become.
Right.
Like, that's what do they call it? The monad, like monadism.
Oh yeah. Right.
And like, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm an expert on this stuff, but some of the stuff I read about and it stays with me that I think is important.
Right.
Like, I kind of feel that myself, you know, like, but that element of it's right, that it is kind of like one being, infinite experiences.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, all at the same time, and all connected and not separate, right? I mean,
yeah. And the idea of it is that for every single one of those separate eyes that's observing, you have to remove yourself from take it away from the ocular eye to the eye, the actual you. Mm-hmm. And then that's enlightenment, is rising above that to realize the connection the everything, to the everybody else and everything else, and you know what I mean?
Dude, that was very, very well eloquently spoken, my man. Seriously. I mean that and I completely can follow that train of thought totally. And I've, felt that way too. I think that's a thing. And I think, part of this is just like the awakening of that to that level. I mean, one of the things he talked about too, he's like, we're not the only family. There's like 3 other families. He's like, there's other families that are dealing with this too. But NASA wanted to have them be the, like the poster child to like come out and say, yeah, we've been studying these people for 15 years and yeah, this is the thing. And, kind of make it like, hey, we're kind of got this figured out or whatever. And, these people are cool. So let them tell you about it,
But it was interesting how he sort of said when they started arriving on his doorstep that it was kind of like, it's easier to be cool with these guys. Because if we're not cool with them, they could be awful to us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
so the fact that first interactions start with that slight element of threat where it's kind of like, I need to watch my P's and Q's with them. I need to tell them what they need to know because I don't feel safe around them. Very strange basis for a relationship to begin on.
Yeah. Oh, no, totally, man. I'm right there with you. That's the kids running around screaming, man. It's all good. I don't have a torture chamber happening. I got the kids are out there making forts and having, it's Christmas break. So they're running around having a good time. So
we're trying to make the most of it at the minute. Cause the UK's gone into like, we've been
complete lockdown, right?
Complete lockdown. Yeah. It's just utterly like, oh my
I'm so
God.
sorry, man. That sucks so bad.
And we've got some rampant mutant variant of the virus apparently.
How does it happen on an island that the whole thing just baffles me? You know what I mean? Like I just
don't know, mate.
I mean, it's a big island, but still, it just doesn't like in the south of the island. That's just a weird, you know what I mean? Like,
well, it's just London was out of control though. I mean, like the messages in this country have just been, because our government, I can only speak for our government, but our government are hugely conservative,
Right.
Both by name and by nature.
Yeah.
So
right.
What they want is they want money. They want the tills clicking all the time. And the bare truth of it is being like, it's kind of like, right, we're all in lockdown. You can't socialize with anybody. You can't go and hang out with your friends. You can't, it's not about going to the pub. It's like, you can't go swimming. You can't do anything.
Right. Yeah.
So like, but you can go to the shops and spend money. And you can, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's how it is here too, man. Same deal.
So the people go out and they just basically rinsed Oxford Street. Like London went mental, and it was like coronavirus had never happened. And then the next thing you know, it's spreading like wildfire. And then people are complaining that Christmas gets cancelled.
I wonder why.
What are you thinking, man?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, whatever. The thing is, like, coronavirus is such a touchy subject, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's bizarre, man. I don't know. I think we'll figure it out eventually, but who knows? Shit, I don't know. I don't know.
UFOs, man.
No. Something we can figure out.
Yeah, exactly. We'll find the answer in no time.
Yeah, right. We'll figure it out now, man. But if it wasn't for the coronavirus, I wouldn't have done this, man. Because I would have been out hot rodding cars. I would have been, like doing stuff that I normally do. Like I'd have been doing fun, that kind of stuff. And I was just, I had the time and I got the tools and I'm just going to do it. But one of the things that Ryan said in this talk too, kind of hit spot on, was like, we legit said this the other night where I said it was like my buddy who had coronavirus. We didn't believe it. He didn't believe it was real. And then, he still didn't believe it after he got it. And Ryan Bledsoe said the same thing. He's like, there's so many people that are conditioned mentally to just not even let it enter their minds. Like he said the same thing. Almost I said, like, spacecraft comes down and says, hey, shakes your hand. And like, you would just be like, no, I don't believe it. And I've seen that totally, man. I think there's certain people, whether it's through indoctrination, and I don't know, I can't remember the words he used, but it was something like programming or something, that they're just can't accept that reality as like something that's possible,
I think he said propaganda, didn't he? So
you might have said propaganda. Yeah.
And that's it. It's a good word for it. I mean,
like the sci-fi, he probably brought in sci-fi where you think that, it's like a lightsaber and you get onto a ship and all this stuff. And like, that's the only thing you can think about. You don't think about this whole spirituality and like any of this other stuff. None of that is brought up anywhere, right? It's more like, let's get a lightsaber and take on some, weird stuff, I don't know.
I was thinking about this the other day because like, going back to like, the Star Wars came out in 1977, yeah?
Yeah.
I think that's right. That was the year I was born.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Star Wars, 77.
Yeah.
But like, and at the same year, I think, or maybe a year later, it was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the next year. I think it was 78. Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong. It could be 77 or but I think it was 78, 77, 78. Yeah.
So you got this era of sci-fi, and obviously it's nothing new, but I mean, Star Wars was just, action and fun, but with this idea of spiritual force.
It did, yeah.
Like the Templar Knight, almost Jedis, you know what I mean?
Right, the light and the dark. You had the whole duality of the thing too, right? You had the bad, you had the Sith, and you have the
it's all there, isn't it? Like, it's that age-old story of. But then you go flip it and go, all right, so we'll take some sci-fi, and a year later we'll go into Close Encounters. So we'll bring it to the now and make quite a current story.
Yeah,
but that touches on the telepathy and the psychic element of it, the fact that these people are affected by it, and what he was making there was really bang on the money.
Mm-hmm.
I went to go out to see this stuff. I mean, do you remember it well enough? Like,
yeah.
Roadsides, and there's people there waiting, and you got the hippies like, come and save us.
Yeah.
It's the same as it is now, yeah. And what was going on then? The age of Aquarius, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's that same thing. It's the whole going around in cycles, like the hippies, and you know what I mean. It's the same thing. And I don't know. Sorry, go on.
No. I was just going to say it's completely right. And my dad, like I said, Dad's 80, right? And he's been this whole life, he's been into this, right? And he was completely convinced, even, when I was a kid, he's like, they're just slowly doing stuff like those movies and like TV shows and whatever, to just slowly get people to be cool with it. He said his theory was that after War of the Worlds, shook everybody, that they were going to have to like slowly put it into popular culture to make everybody be cool with it, so they don't lose their mind, so that they're just accustomed to it. I mean, if you think of the quintessential gray alien with the black eyes, I mean, there's T-shirts. I mean, it's on, my 3-year-old, she knows what it is, and she's an alien, like it's, you know what I mean? But like, 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't it was less known, right? And so Whitley Strieber's book came out, honestly. I mean, it wasn't a big thing, but now it's like in pop culture.
What do you think the gray is then? Like, what's your opinion? What do you think the gray is?
I think the grays are an astral projection in a biological type of entity that, like a droid, right? I don't know. That's my thing. Like either a worker droid, like a biological AI machine. Yeah.
Like so, or because I sort of like, my thing is that they're AI, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like just biological artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's kind of good. They're programmed to do a job, and that's just what they do, right? Like it's just kind of like a worker ant or bee or something, right? Like the same kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was interested in thought about it. I think that's the way that the people who are into ufology are going. Yeah, because for a long time it was like, these greys are the ones that are gonna offer us the love and peace, man, and like we'll take you to our leader and all that. But now it's more kind of like, well, we'd just be talking to the organ. We need the grinder.
Yeah, right. No, that's totally it, man. Well, I mean, it's weird because there's so many different cases from all over the world of people who will see humanoids or human looking beings along with the grays, and so many cases, I mean, when I was really surprised to hear about that Travis Walton thing on when Corbell and or not Corbell, sorry, James Fox and Jacques Vallée went on Rogan. We're talking about the Travis Walton story, how it was completely different than the his story was different than Hollywood made it,
Yeah, because he saw humanoid,
like bubble, like helmet kind of things. Yeah, blonde, like the Nordic looking people, right? Like they were just big and just kind of scooped them up, and there were grays there too, I mean.
This is what I kind of, honestly, like, I was thinking about it today, like if someone was actually to say to me, what do you believe is the narrative?
Right.
That is probably the narrative that sits with me, right? Like they're the beings that the precursors to the Nazis made contact with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is what it feels like. And they're the ones that probably, like the Theosophical Society, Blavatsky and so on, reckon they were making contact with.
The Vril and
take it further back into the mountains of Tibet, in the Himalayas. Prior to that, you got the stories in the 17th century of Francis Bacon apparently getting himself over to Tibet,
right,
becoming a master and all this stuff. And then the idea that that's where the doorway to
Shambhala, right? Is that what it
Shambhala,
is? Yeah.
yeah. The idea that that's where it is, and in a secluded mountain, this is where you'll find these things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that idea of like that Aryan race of beings, the blonde hair and the blue eyes,
Right.
Yeah, it goes back to that. There's a book. Do you know about the book by Bulwer Lytton?
Was he is he a guy who was royalty in one of the Scandinavian countries and
He's British, right? But
okay.
he was Lord Lytton, right? Edward
Okay.
Bulwer, Lord Lytton,
Okay.
and he was a viceroy for Great Britain to India. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I did actually see a documentary about him. I think Robert Seffer did that, had a part of him on there. Where he was talking about like that they actually descended from the top of Earth and they came down and they came to India and they had all this class system and
yeah.
Am I going wrong? Am I on the right?
No, that's essentially it. Because like
yeah,
he wrote a book called The Coming Race, which is where the word Vril came from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the whole Vril thing that went into the Vril Society.
Right.
But the beliefs behind it, from what I can make out, were that these beings that the Vril Society had contacted via psychic means,
right,
were in Tibet. Okay, and they've done it via an entrance via Tibet.
Right.
And they were from Aldebaran. Okay, so like
they've just been here forever. Yeah.
We were talking about this the other day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's in that legend, that's the star system that these beings came from. Yeah. So then you get the whole cuts into the Secret Machines fiction book or fiction.
Yeah.
Where the Nazis are using, they've created the bell or the Glock.
Yeah.
And that idea that they escape from Wenceslas' mind where they've been working on this stuff. And
right.
But to that point in the Vril mythology, the psychics of the Vril Society had been the ones harnessing this energy in the same way that they reckon that people like Tesla and stuff have been doing the same sort of stuff.
Right.
And they escaped, disappeared to wherever. Some people believe they went to Aldebaran.
Right.
Some people believe they went with a load of the other Nazis to South America.
Yeah, South America, Antarctica, that whole
Antarctica, yeah,
right,
exactly. So
yeah.
that's where. And so if you imagine Secret Machines missing that element of the story of the Vril Society out, but then starting at the end of it, and then the ships that the Vril Society have created alongside the Nazis, that's where it begins. Yeah.
Yeah. No, dude, that makes a lot of sense, dude.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that legend comes in. But the other side of it is that you get these people like Lord Lytton who writes a story about this race under the ground who are way more advanced than us. The Vril Society pick up on that and start to utilize it in their own findings, sending expeditions out to all over the world trying to find these people. And then we get to where we are now. So, and a lot of that stuff, like it was real. Like, I don't know what was real, but there was a Vril Society. They were communicating with high members of the Nazi Party. They did believe that they were doing this stuff, but like everything, it's all been obfuscated and clouded, so it's hard to tell, but it feels right, because everything for me, like up to the Eisenhower stuff, same thing. Like the idea of these blonde-haired, blue-suited humanoids, like it's the same, again, it's the same stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I start to look at it now, and I just think, well, maybe that's it.
And same thing with Travis Walton, had the same, blonde hair, blue-eyed, just kind of the same thing where they could be. I mean, and then you talk when Bigelow's big thing, he's like, yeah, they're right here, they're right under your nose, they're right. I mean, they're right here, so you don't have to go anywhere. I mean, they're right here. So, no, I think that's probably like that whole ultra terrestrial or whatever the term is for them. I mean, that's a really solid.
The ultra terrestrial, yeah. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because like, when people have talked about this for a long time, and even as in the subculture of ufology, people start to become more comfortable being ufologists,
right,
and saying that openly. Not a lot of people are probably going to start heading back down the hollow Earth route or the 10,000 leagues stuff, 10,000 leagues under the sea stuff, where you're going to find a world of beings and crazy squid that can
right, yeah.
But now people can buy that probably easier than a lot of the interstellar stuff. It's like really? There's an advanced race of creatures living under our feet. It's like, wow. I mean, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really cool how DeLong kind of in his books like tied in the whole fairy thing. You know, at the beginning of that, I was like, "What in what left field shit?" But then I started getting into it, and I'm like, you follow the parables and all that, and that whole, you know, the lore, you know, fairies and you know, and different things influencing man throughout history, and you know, like, you know, basically leaving things out for them, you know, and like, you know, trying to get in their good graces, and you know, because they're powerful, and you know, all this other stuff, and that turns into Gnosticism and all that other stuff too. It's kind of like that kind of, you know, you can see that whole thread weave through there, you know, where all of that fringe stuff that you think is just fairy tales and everything is really rooted in some type of something happened.
Truth. Some form of truth.
It's, I mean, it could be just completely, you know, it could be the crazy game of telephone where, you know, you tell somebody one thing and comes back around and it's completely different, but there's that granularity in there that's probably hits right home, you know? So, well,
I mean, it's funny because like belief in that stuff goes around in circles, doesn't it? Like, I know that when I was growing up, people would like in this country, they'd show you pictures of these fairy photographs that were taken at the turn of the century.
Yeah, that was a big deal. Like the 1800s, and then it was found out that somebody like spoofed them, or you know, they tried to say that they were
some little girls apparently reckon they spoofed them, and like and it was kind of, but those things create they just add into the collective unconscious, like and every country's got them, like these myths of these beings and so on. So they're there, and I just wonder about this idea that, you know, going back to the idea that we're all just the eyepieces for one being,
right?
That every time we experience these things, that archetype or that part of the collective unconscious is a memory.
Just levels up a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, when these manifested like 200 years ago, when belief was strong enough. And the last time the elves appeared or the leprechauns popped up under a tree, because enough people believed,
right?
Because of whatever shift was happening, like when the Catholic Church are rampaging through Europe, and you know it's fire and brimstone, and people are starting to see angels because they're probably like it's being manifested. It's like, I really believe in the manifestation of, again going back to that, the idea of the tulpas. The Tibetan sort of manifestations of physical matter.
No, totally. And then Bledsoe said the same thing too. He talked about Fatima. I mean, and that was one of my big theories too, that Fatima was tied into that whole thing too, that like, you know, the lady was part of Fatima. And you think about that. I mean, they didn't have like a really good number of people that were there. Some reports say 50,000, some say 100,000. Even if it was 50,000 people, you got 50,000 people in there. And like you said, they're all in the same way. They want to see something. They are expecting to see the Virgin Mary. Right. And and then whatever it manifests it, right? It happens. Because
they saw the sun grow and
just move all around. And just dry up everything because it had been, you know, and then go, and you can't tell me 50,000 people made that shit up, you know, like.
No, you can't. And this is the thing. I think you can manifest it. Like,
totally.
I mean, like, I personally, you know, never manifested anything that I know about, but a lot of the time people don't know they're doing it. And this is the beauty of it. Like, I mean, you saw this stuff with the other day. We were talking about Discordianism, like the Anton Wilson stuff, like the idea that you just throw so much shit out there, man. Like, create so many wacky beliefs. Something's going to stick, and people are going to follow it. And you create a new reality. So, like, and sometimes, like, the idea that if you get enough people to believe hard enough, like a religion again, you make stuff happen, man. Like the statue at the end of the room's going to suddenly start crying blood. But really it's not. It's just moisture that's built up and whatever. But whatever that explanation may be, something's happened physical whilst people are believing. It's powerful.
Well, I mean, I was talking to Blake, another buddy of mine, the other night, and we were talking about, I went to the Angels and Airwaves show when DeLong did his tour in 2019 before coronavirus and all that stuff. He came to Detroit, which is, you know, just real close to me. So I went up there and, you know, checked it out. And then during that show, and people have played it online too, where there's like a woman's voice and it comes on and it's like, you know, this is a kind of a grand experiment. Like all of you now have like scientifically been proven that at like a concert or everybody here is like your brain waves are now synced. and I can't remember what wavelength, if it's theta, I think it's theta or beta. I'm not sure what it is, but you know, your wavelengths are synced, and we're all kind of in unison. We're all sharing this experience together as one.
Hello. We would like you to know that you are part of a grand experiment. It is called humanity. Inside of you, there is something called a soul. It is one piece of a unified mind. Some call this mind God. Some call it the source. But both are correct. It is light. It is pure love. It is each star born into the infinite blackness of space. Your soul is an antenna that allows you to connect to the light, to all that is known, and to all that will be. This connection is the strongest during times of pain and heartache, for this is when you shall learn the most. During this show, your minds have synced up to the same frequency, to the same electromagnetic patterns. When we are connected like this, we can achieve wonders beyond imagination. We can initiate miracles. Only then can we experience this physical life in the way we were intended to. As a soul, in a physical body, using this connection to change the world.
You know,
Yeah.
and like he played that during the show, and that's kind of like a thing, you know, when you go to a rock show or like any type of concert. I mean, everybody's kind of doing that. Music kind of does that, and like
it creates trance, and it creates connection, and
right.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's an incredible thing, isn't it? Like
totally. And I think there's a lot of that we just barely understand. But like you said, like, you know, like you get you get all these people in there like expecting to see the Virgin Mary statue cry, and everybody's on that wavelength, right? Or the sun, you know, comes down the Fatima thing or whatever. And it's like, and I've always believed this, man, totally. And I say it, and I kind of like feel like I'm being woo woo a little bit when I say it, but I really think like the greatest trick or whatever that whoever in power, whoever decided to do for humanity has been that our humans ability, psychic or whatever you want to call it, has been completely hidden from us from the beginning of time. We always had to rely on somebody else. We had to go to the priest to help us to do this. We had to go to the doctor to do this or whatever. But I think the greatest like thing that's happened to us is we've been told that we can't do anything by ourselves. I think that we really can. I think humans are just like the most amazing beings but we just don't believe that we have it. I think that if we can switch that, turn that on, I mean, alone signal, like just one person is amazing. But like you said, we get into a group, shit, there's nothing that anybody can stop us from doing anything ever. Absolutely.
And this is the thing, like, and I suppose the way it's been happening at the minute is that you've got massive religions.
Yeah.
But they all have to follow individuals. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it always goes up the chain to one person or a group of people, and they filter that. They're filtering that energy.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's it. It is magic.
It is.
Whether you're a Catholic priest or whether you're a witch, like, it's magic. Yeah.
It is.
Like, you put a robe on and you utter words in certain patterns in rhythmical ways, and you pray to invisible deities, and you commune with it. It's the same stuff, dude. Like, it's just wrapped up in different packages, isn't it?
Totally.
I believe it's hard, man. But if we had the power to harness that, well, if we have, but it's just getting enough people to figure that out.
Right.
That's it. It's crazy, really. Like, it's funny because I got this really awesome document which I'll send you a copy of. It's a Rosicrucian document.
Nice.
And it's talking about telepathy.
Yeah.
So it just goes into that. I mean, you've probably read it. I don't know, but like, it literally is just like, this is how you communicate with someone through the cosmos. How you send a message. Yeah. And it's pretty straightforward. It is exactly manifestation. Like the easy concept of saying, make an easy message, easily understandable, visualize the person you want to send it to, like as though they're literally in front of you, their reactions to what you might be saying to them. You can imagine their frame, their very being, and then you just keep repeating that message and make sure that you feel like they get it, and you visualize them receiving it and nodding. And then you say thank you to the universe, that you've tried to contact this individual. Thank you to the universe for helping me, blah, blah, blah. And there you go. And then there's
Yeah.
a response element to it too. So people who are tuned into it, so you can start working on this stuff, right? Like
Right.
whether it's real or not. But I think it is real, like definitely.
Yeah. There were some people online. I was probably on UFO Twitter months ago or something that was like same kind of thing. They're like, but do it. An easy way to do it would be like a phantom texting. So like, say I want to text you and I start writing the text and I write it, but I don't hit send.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I have it written and I'm looking at it, you know, and I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking about you answering it, you know, and it's the same kind of thing, right? Like, or when you're chatting or whatever online, right? When you and I are chatting, whatever, it's like kind of, you know, it's that, and we're doing it I mean, what you're talking about is making the conscious decision to do it, and now we're just so reliant on technology to do it for us, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you can imagine the sorts of types of people that talk about that concept,
right?
I mean, like you say now, I mean, that concept is given to us through technology.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to contact someone immediately, like, you know, 20 years ago,
yeah, it wasn't happening.
Everyone had the internet. It's not going to happen now. Like you're going to be like, if I wanted to talk to you, well, I would never have heard about you. I would never have met you.
Right.
If I had, I'd be like going, right, now I'm going to have to make a phone call that's going to cost me about £5 a minute.
Or I'm going to write a letter. It's going to take 2 months to get there.
Exactly.
Right.
Or we might send faxes, which is just soulless. So really, it's like these things that, you know, because at the turn of the century, like in the 1880s up to the 1920s or whatever, and on. But before we had that sort of level of technology, people started they focused a lot more on the occult, like on the idea that maybe there is energies, there is ways to connect. Like the turn of the century was just like full of it, man. Like it was like really on vogue. I think it goes around in cycles. People.
Oh, totally. You get into it, then you get out of it. It's like, the 1800s and the people that had money and the Blavatskys and all that stuff that was going on, and that shit's just coming back, man. It's just coming back, man. It's just totally coming back.
Tom DeLonge and the Chris Mellons, they've got a lot of money, and the people who can actually go, right, I'm going to make something of this and I'm going to investigate it. How else can you do it?
No, it can't be the guy digging the ditch all day who just can barely make 2 cents and figure it out. You know, like you're not going to sit around and spend time doing that shit. You know, it's the people that have money. You know what I mean? You're right. You're totally spot on.
You kind of go, right, coronavirus has kicked in. I can't go and race hot rods and do all the stuff I like doing. So I'm going to do this because I like this too.
Yeah.
I'll fix it to my environment. Imagine if you just gone, you know what? But I also am a billionaire, right?
So just put all of this money out there.
You know what I mean? That's what I'd do. Totally. If I was a billionaire, I'd be like, why not, man? Like, why not?
Dude, that's totally it, man. No, that's. I think you're right on, man. Yeah, it's just amazing that it's just that whole cycle. It's just everything's a cycle, and it just comes back and back and back.
Yeah, but it always keeps coming back, and usually as well, it's like it's because there's this constant nagging thought in my mind anyway that we don't know the truth. Our history's a lot of the time not true. Yeah,
we've seen that a lot.
And the things that we're capable of are taken from us.
Yeah.
So like, you know, and it's been ongoing. Like, and when you start to become that, or you feel that, you can't ever stop feeling that.
No, right? Yeah, it's not something you can turn off, man. No,
it's not. So like, and the reality of it is, it's like kind of, you know, I touched on this the other day. Like because my wife grew up a Catholic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I mean, I grew up Catholic too.
Yeah, and like, so you know, and so my children went to a Catholic school. And, like, so Catholicism's in our life.
Yeah.
But I'm not Catholic.
Right.
And she probably wouldn't say she was anymore either, really.
Right.
But it took her a long time of her life to kind of get to the point where she was able to say that without feeling like she was going to be judged by God.
No, that's a big deal, man. I mean, you know, and I've fought with this my whole life because I was like forced to go when I was at a young age. I was like, I just don't want to do this. You know, like I just didn't, you know, just wasn't it. But it was like, no, you're going. You know, and I look back and like, you know, I was telling you I was doing history and stuff in my family, and it's like the historical records I've seen from like as far back as you can are from like the Catholic Church. I kept really good records, you know, for baptisms and marriage, you know, all this stuff. But, you know, like, and finally going through all the stuff that I've gone through and all the teaching and learnings, and, you know, part of it was in Masonic, part of it was Rosicrucianism and all this other stuff, was that for it to still exist in a capacity that it does and have the power and the wield that it does worldwide, there has to have been a sprinkling of magic in there, like we were talking about. Like, I would think like back on the inception, back in when it first started happening, that when you got 3 or 4 people together and they did whatever they did, incantations, whatever, like some shit happened, because you're not just going to like force people into the not making that happen, you know, dropping all your stuff and joining the Catholics. You know, I mean, they have ceremonies. I mean, you go to a mass, it's a ceremony just like any other ceremony. We just talked about it. Like, but I think back in the day, there was some real stuff going on. And I think now that there's got to be a sprinkling of it still there, or else it wouldn't hold it. But I think that's been so diluted through money and power and all this other shit into like a machine that I think that a lot of it's gone.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, you know, for me, because I grew up as an agnostic, you know, like I wasn't Christian or anything like that.
Right.
My family weren't particularly religious. My dad's an atheist. So growing up for me, you know, I didn't really know hardly anything about Christianity or faith or anything. It just wasn't part of that, you know. But although the other day we were talking about as well, despite that, if I was to sign a form or apply for a new passport, everyone ticks Church of England, or they did, because you feel like you had to. It's like, well, if I put other, oh no, what will they think of me? So,
there's going to be a sign on my house when I wake up.
Yeah. So in the 80s, maybe it was a bit more like that. But
yeah,
you know, I don't know where I'm going with this.
No. It's great. I mean, it's just a thing now. I think people are starting to be able to think for themselves or think outside of the boxes that are. Yeah.
You know, one thing that I was thinking about, like, I mean, this is a cool idea. For example, when you go back to Enoch, man, like you go back that far.
Yeah.
And you look at sort of the stories around it, and to John the Baptist, and all up before that through ancient Egypt, the idea that they were utilizing psychedelic medication or drugs, like mushrooms and DMT,
and all that stuff, right?
And there's big parts of that, like all the way through. Like in the mysteries, there's this idea that psilocybin played a part.
Yeah, the sprig of acacia. I mean, we talk about this. Acacia is one of the things in Freemasonry, right? Yeah. And the sprig of acacia, it has DMT in it.
Yeah, that's it. The acacia. Yeah, exactly, and that's in the Bible, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
So, like, this idea that since the beginning of time, right? Let's say that Enoch, prior to him, the Watchers and all that, the idea that as part of visionary shamanic, well, what were they using it for? Like prophecy? I don't know. Getting in touch with God.
Right. Yeah.
They were taking this stuff, you know, and there's evidence that there was on the altars of ancient Egyptian temples that they found like Mithra, like for example, like the Frisian cap that Mithra wears is connected to the idea that it's the mushroom of enlightenment.
Totally. All of it, man.
So you start seeing the idea that through our ancient past, then, you know, using the use of these drugs was a big deal. All right. And it was practiced all over the world from what I can see, you know, like wherever they could get something that would do it to them.
Right.
And then that was faded out. But in the meantime, you've had thousands of years or more of us munching away on these things, and it creates, again, the collective unconscious.
Yeah.
And then in the 50s, they started discovering mushrooms down in the rainforests of the South America.
Right.
Then it all begins again. You know what I mean?
It's just then it's illegal. Then the government, the U.S. government, makes it illegal. You know, like you know, and then now it's becoming. You know, now they're decriminalizing it and making it, you know, legal in some states now. And then they're doing research now. Yeah, for DMT and stuff. Yeah, totally.
Mate, the Guardian newspaper in Great Britain. Yeah, the Guardian. It's like it's a lovely newspaper. It's like it's really liberal and kind of right on, man.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But I remember opening up an article in that, and it was about a guy who goes, you know, the day I tried magic mushrooms in like a nice posh dad newspaper, and it was basically. He'd read an article about how it cures depression or helps anxiety and all that. So, but because it's a Class A drug in this country, you can't get it unless, you know, if you're not in the world that knows about where to get this stuff from, you can't get it.
Right.
So we went online and he ordered a kit from Amsterdam, and it
of
came.
Course,
and
yeah.
In the article, he's like going, "Oh, I was nervous waiting for this kit to arrive. What if customs get hold of it?"
Yeah.
But it came, and it was a good article. It was fun. And he grew them, and he goes, "Oh, I was waiting for the day my 7-year-old daughter would ask me what the mushrooms were on top of the airing cupboard." I was like, anyway. So in the end, he grew them, and then he microdosed with them.
Yeah.
And he said his life improved
Dramatically. Yeah, totally,
So then you
man.
look at the people like me and they just go, that's my validation, start getting psilocybin and microdosing. But what it does is it filters through different environments. It comes out of the academia.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the crazy people, seemingly, these
Yeah.
CIA madmen we were talking about, like
Yeah.
the Ken Kesey's and the McKenna's and Leary, and like just pushing this stuff.
Yeah.
And like this theory behind it all, and it's just kept on going. And there is this idea that you bring that in, you create this sort of this order out of chaos, man.
Dude, totally. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember. There was another thing too that DeLong was talking about people. And so one of the theories that are floating around is like, do they have like 100, there's 100 people doing this and whatever. I can't remember what it loosely was, but a bunch of people put it together. It was like, is there like 100 people on intravenous DMT, like talking to the machine elves all day long? Like, is there somebody is there a branch of the military where they got dudes just IV'd up and like,
Probably.
and they're just coming out and like letting you know,
Well, mate, when you hear some of the horror stories about how far things can go, like,
oh yeah,
I remember reading into, because like I've got a real background of being interested in like meditation,
mm-hmm, right,
and when I was younger, like went to a Vipassana camp, which is like kind of just intense breath meditation.
Yeah.
Silence for like 10 days, where you can't look at anybody there, you can't speak to anybody, and you meditate for like 13 hours a day, and you get up at 4 a.m. with a gong, and you have to go.
Wow.
You find a lot of it kind of makes or breaks you,
Yeah, right.
But it teaches you how to meditate, and it teaches you to get past that part where you can't get into meditation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it's hard. It was really hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it was like a jewel, right?
Yeah.
Back of that, my granddad, prior to me going to that, actually, he'd given me all these books by a lady called Alexandra David Neal, who in like the early 20th century, like 1910, she managed to get into Lhasa in Tibet, and she was a Belgian woman, right?
Wow.
Like, she's unheard of, but to get in there, she had to go and like live in a cave with this Tibetan guy so he'd help her for like years, until she was bedraggled enough and filthy enough and fluent enough to be able to enter through the country and make her way there. And she saw real mysticism, the proper Tibetan stuff.
Like meditating, levitating monks and shit like that.
Yeah. And tulpas. And all now, so he introduced me to all that when I was a teenager. So I was like, this is cool, cool stuff. I didn't appreciate it enough in the way that I would now.
Right.
But it was cool, and I was like, wow. So I read these books. Anyway, then I started, I meditate, and I've done this for Vipassana. So I'm like thinking, it's part of my life, I guess. It's always been there.
Right.
But then I start to read the CIA Project Gateway stuff, right? Itzhak Bentov, who was a psychologist, I believe. But he was like basically, you've read that report, yeah?
I've seen parts of it. I haven't read that thing in entirety, but I've seen enough to know that
it's pretty full on. It's pretty technical.
Yeah.
But for me, right, when I read it, I was like, this is unbelievable, because it makes direct reference to Vipassana and says, like, in terms of, it's almost the same technique, yeah? So I was like, oh, wow. So I start reading more, and then it starts to quote Alexandra David Neal.
Wow.
So there's a portion in it, it's like, Alexandra David Neal, and they're talking about manifestation of, so I'm going, Jesus Christ. So my granddad was putting me onto that stuff in the early 90s, earlier probably. Yeah, it would have been like 1990 or something. And then all these years later, you start saying, oh my God, it actually feeds into this stuff that I'm been investigating now that's actually affected my life, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
And these links, they come up, and this is why I believe everything's interconnected, like everything.
Totally. No, I mean, spot on, dude. I think it's just happening in greater. I think once you start picking it up and realizing it, like, you see these little things, because I mean, most of the time you can just be like, it's deja vu, coincidence, whatever. But once you start like perceiving them, it either starts happening more, or you have the ability to pick it out more, and either it increases or you figure it out faster, and it's just all the time,
But it's allowing yourself to recognize that's happening too,
right?
Because if you're not from a background that recognizes magic or superstition,
it doesn't exist, man. Yeah,
it doesn't exist. So you won't allow yourself to see it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when I first started to even want to change the way that I thought to start accepting that these things happen, it became a lot easier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like as soon as you really accept that these things do happen,
Then they happen.
Yeah. And it's just like, wow. And it starts happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So what I'm
crazy.
going to do right now is I'm going to accept that there's not going to be somebody in a van that comes scoops me up and pulls me out of here. Because I don't want that shit to happen to me, dude. I was legit. I didn't want to do this for my whole life because that's what all I heard, man. You got shut up. You know, I mean, there's still stories about, I mean, then it kind of just, like I said, it freaked me out a little bit to hear Bledsoe say that too. I mean, there's nothing
that we can say that's going to get us into trouble. Like,
nah.
Ryan Bledsoe saying that stuff probably shouldn't have said all that stuff.
Probably.
But he wanted to. So good on him.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, who should tell him what he can and can't say? I mean, the idea that someone would come along and say, you're not allowed to say this.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the only thing that gives it any credibility, quite honestly, is the fact that these people have come along
and said that.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, like, fair play. I mean, like, I suppose that interview was really good, and I like I said the other day, I do believe them. I do. Yeah. Like, but the reality of it is, like, the evidence is shaky at best, visually. Right.
Yeah.
All right, and the credence to that case is given by the connection to people who are big in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really,
well, but there's some other stuff that's going on. I mean, I've read, read or watched Grant Cameron talk about a lot of the stuff, his investigation of Bledsoe's and stuff. I don't know if you've seen any of that, but I mean,
Grant Cameron, no, actually I haven't, no. I like him too, I should do.
Yeah, you should. I mean, Grant Cameron had some crazy experiences with Bledsoe's, like, and I'm really paraphrasing, I'll make it real fast, but basically he went over there because you heard about the tree catching fires on Bledsoe's. Yeah. So he went over there, like he was doing something and he drove through. He does a video on YouTube. I'll send it to you. But basically he drove down there and he was just going to hang out. He wanted to take pictures of the tree. And anyways, the family dog runs by him. He's there at Bledsoe's and the dog is just in Grant Cameron still has his pants is just covered in blood. Like the dog's like throat slit and bleeding all over the place. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, and then it was healed.
Yeah, like right in front of Grant Cameron, like just healed up in front of him, and he was like,
"This is the thing. I mean, I do believe, and it's funny the other day, right? Like, because not a lot of people online that I see really get into this. Because I still quite like to read about the Ron Pandolfi stuff, yeah.
Right.
Because let's face it, he was part of it all. Whether Shakey's people like to put him out there, but he was a big part of it. And when you start listening to the Grant Cameron stuff on that, he believes that stuff was genuine. Like, you start talking to people about portals, and I listened to one the other night, and they were talking about like metaphysical portals to other universes or dimensions.
Yeah.
So when you get on there, you go, all right, well, I can understand the fact that Grant Cameron gets down with this, yeah. Like he goes along to the Bledsoes, because that's another thing the Bledsoes said, that you don't see anything unless you believe.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the other thing I read too, and I don't know if it's true or not. But there's like people camping in his front yard all the time, all day. Bledsoe's house is just full of people camping in his front of his house, like right now. And the other thing is that people are putting stuff in these trees, like a teddy bear or some kind of thing. That tree, they'll put stuff in it, and they'll take the stuff out, and people are saying they'll give it to somebody who's sick or something, and it's healing these people, like completely healing these people. Well, that's and it hasn't been reported on or pushed out or whatever, but for some reason that's a thing,
Well, if he's turning a little area of Fayetteville, North Carolina, into essentially the new Lords, where people travel to get you've heard of Lords,
get healed, yeah,
like to get healed. Oh, not the first dude to do it, is he? And he won't be the last, man.
Yeah, but I don't think he's just like, they're just here. People are just showing up. You know what I mean? And I think people just need that savior. They need that they need to make it real for them, which is kind of sad in a way, because like it goes back to the whole thing where you're just going following somebody. Like, so then, but maybe not. Maybe the whole thing with the white lady is to come out and say, you don't need to follow somebody. You need to just believe in you.
So,
and
yeah. And I think that, again, it goes back to that idea that the people, come back to Grant Cameron being involved in this stuff, him talking to some of the people he talks to, like Dan Smith, I talked about him before, the eschatology guy. He talks to people that are way out, but he gives them the credence that I think they deserve, because these people, some of their thoughts are so off kilter, so out there, that they make a lot of sense. but and that belief as well, that we're all the eyepieces for one supreme being, whether we know it or not. Right. That's what they're saying. That's the vibe that comes out of the Dan Smiths, like the monadism stuff, like, or the monad. Like I've heard Grant Cameron say, I don't know if they subscribe to it, but he's
giving it time. He's giving it, like, he's listening to it. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and this is the message, obviously, that's the CIA dudes are saying to Ryan, like, God and Satan are the same thing. It's taking you down the Gnostic path, neo-paganism.
Right. It's weird that there's those two branches, though. There's that half that's telling them that, and there's that other half that's like,
it's God, or
we know what it is. I mean, it's something we just don't, like we believe your story, believe what it is. We just need to know what it is. And the crazy part about all this is like, if these people are so, I mean, they're so powerful, they're so connected, they get them, in both sides, right? You got the good, and we just call them both sides of that thing, right? They're both in these same agencies, but you got one faction believing this thing, and you got the other believing this other, and they're so powerful, but they're coming, none of these beings are talking to them. Why? Right? For probably damn good reason, because they know that aligning themselves to one way or the other just completely diverges from what their message or what they really are.
Absolutely.
Whether they like it or not.
Well, I mean,
and how do we know that the other three families that Bledsoe's are, that he says, like, there's other three families, and okay, they're a Pentecostal. Like, how do we know that there's not like an Amish family that doesn't even have a television? How do we know that there's not like a Satanist family in the middle of somewhere? Or, you know what I mean? Like, how do, like, there could be just three disparate,
You go to Tibet, where everybody probably meditates and sees them every day.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Or
India, where it's just like the guy on the street, like, it's just the white lady. She's here. I'm trying to buy some cheese on her.
Exactly. There'll be people who are tuned into it. Yeah. They'll probably be the ones who will be like, "Oh, don't sit next to me on the train, man. You're a freak."
I just want to go home. I've had a long shift, lady. Get out.
Yeah, that's it. But I'm trying to tell you the secrets of life. Hang on.
Not today, lady.
Breaking Bad's on. Come on, I've got to go watch it. But it's true, man. It's like, and I've worried about this stuff before. Like, for example, I mean, this is just an example, but you get, if you again, come back to belief.
Yeah.
You believe in stuff. Like, if you're a Christian, a lot of the time, a lot of Christians believe or want to believe that there's going to be a second coming.
Life after death, second coming, right? Yeah.
Oh, well, a Messiah figure,
Yeah, that's every culture. That's everything, though. That's every...
Yeah, it's every religion, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, taking it from my point of view, and I suppose the one that growing up I would have been close to would have been a knowledge of Christianity. Not now, obviously, but like... so, yeah, that's kind of what you grow up with. So for me, the idea of... oh mate, I've totally lost track. What were we going? Where did we start with that?
It was the people having the two disparate entities. So you have like the good and the bad, and like if the white lady aligns with one or the other, then like these people believe it's this. So then ultimately their whole entire belief system is validated because they believe it's this. And then if it's the other way, then they believe, there is no God, or yes, there is the God. And you know what I mean? Like there's that whole, so why you can't go to one or the other. If you're that all knowing being that, you can't pick a side. You have to go into the middle to make people go, the people so that you have to go in my mind, you have to go into the middle of the people that think there's God and they're Christians. And they think it's the God thing. And you have to go to the other side too. And have those people go, well, maybe we're not right. And the same thing with the Christians, like Bledsoe saying they're like Pentecostal, we've God, like they can't, like the women can't cut their hair. They can't they can't, they have to cover their ankles. They have to wear dresses. Like you go to that side and maybe they're going to the way other side, like people that just are a completely atheist or worse. And they're like, wait a minute, there is some shit to this, and bringing it together. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Like, when you look at the way that our society is going now, and I think this is again, looking at popular culture, this has been reflected pretty well by Ridley Scott recently. I told you the other day I was going to watch Raised by Wolves.
Yeah, I haven't got into that yet. Is that great?
Yeah, it's superb, right? But I'll just give you a basic breakdown. It's the future.
Yeah. Okay.
The Earth is basically being destroyed in a massive war caused by AI, all right?
Gotcha.
Hello, someone's coming in. Hi, Roots.
Yeah.
Sorry, well, so don't worry, he's gone now. So yeah, caused by like AI.
Yeah.
And the two factions, human factions that are left over that are trying to survive the AI, who both are trying to kill each other as well,
Of course.
are the atheists and the Mithraics.
Oh, of course.
And they worship Mithra, yeah? Like
Yeah.
the sun and the solar god. And they've become incredibly religious. So it's like a few hundred years in the future. And it's the story essentially of Adam and Eve. They sent two AI to a Kepler 22b with some fetuses and say, create an atheist paradise.
Wow.
So they're programmed to create an atheist paradise. So two robots start to bring these kids up. Meanwhile, 10 years later, the atheists and the Mithra turn up, start to have a battle, yeah? So like, it's awesome. So the idea that he starts to bring that stuff in though, and also some strange fungus that they eat, and getting into the entheogens, and like I think it's interesting stuff. And there's certain types of people again who have, again, if it's part of these archetypes of the belief systems, the subconscious that we've all got, we're all connected to the same thing. These stories keep on coming back, and the messages keep on coming back. The same stuff, man.
yeah. Like the players change, but it's the same thing over and over again. The players are all different, but it's the same message and it's the same story. Yeah, I mean, I promise that I believe that psilocybin and all those different DMTs, all the things that they switch on. I mean, it's been scientifically proven that switches on parts of your brain that don't normally talk to each other, and there's different interactions that you have. And who's to say that that's not an awakened state that that you can get? I mean, basically, it turns you into Superman in the psychological, mythological part of your brain, right, or that belief center.
Well, evolutionary wise, like from some of the stuff, like, so I'm not an expert on this by any means, but the idea that these parts of your brain that light up when you're on that stuff
exist, they exist, right? There has to be a receptor for it to happen, right?
Out of it.
Yeah.
So the idea that at some point they were always on.
Yeah. Right. Imagine that, right? So like you go back to the putting everybody on a IV drip of DMT for your brain's always on. Yeah.
So if that was always on, and you were super sensitive to it, you'd be walking around 5-dimensional beings, and of course you would, yeah.
Yeah, like, you'd be levitating, you'd be doing all kinds of shit, right? I mean, there'd be. That was just a gnat. That's funny. I caught it.
Mr. Maggie.
I should, man. Dude, no, I think that's still, and it goes back to the thing. Like, I think that we've been like just dumbed down and like told that we can't do this shit. And then maybe that part of our brain just shut off after, I don't know how long, but like, no, you can't do that. Listen to this guy and he'll be able to tell you to do it. And this guy still does it.
If you try and do it, we'll drown you, or we'll burn you, or in this day and age, we'll tell you're a freak and we'll bully your kids at school, right? Like Ryan.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the difference. So it's kind of like, but again, like we said the other night, there is definitely this idea that there's this new spiritual awakening. It's becoming easier. Like in this country, someone like Ryan, they won't get treated like he's been treated in his part of America. And I'm guessing it's different from different parts of America too.
It is. I mean, it's probably, like if he did that in Brooklyn, they probably wouldn't give a shit. But I mean, from where he was at, you know what I mean? It's maybe though, maybe, but kids just like to be cruel. It's just, how it is.
Absolutely. They do. Absolutely. But at the same time, like imagine if you're the son of a Protestant Church of England vicar.
Yeah.
And you go to school and you say, my dad like regularly communes with spirits and blah, blah, blah. And it's, it's just equally bonkers, isn't it? But depending on where you come from and your cultural conditioning, people are down with that, yeah?
Yeah, totally.
Some of those kids are probably going to that kid's dad's church and experiencing the power of spirit every Sunday with their parents, yeah?
Mm-hmm. I think people find their own tribes, man. Like somehow, eventually it all works out. Like, I mean, you and I don't know what put us together, but I'm glad that we're friends. We're talking, you know what I mean? But I think that people kind of gravitate towards the people that, I don't know if it's the wavelength we put out or something, but I think that's kind of the thing. People kind of find their own tribes and hopefully expand on them.
Well, wavelengths, there's probably something in that, man. There's probably something in it. Like seriously.
Totally.
I mean, I was reading something interesting the other day, like based off, there's been these attacks in Cuba.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The microwaves, or I don't know. They won't even tell you what it is, but it's just fucking with there.
Well, I was reading this I'll send it to you, man. It's brilliant. Like, basically, they reckon Tesla in 1913 or something came out and said, I believe that electromagnetic frequencies, I think that's what he was calling them. Like, I can fire them at certain frequencies and it'll create different emotions in people.
Yeah. I remember
so the Russians apparently picked up on it. And check this out, right? Do you know if you fire the frequency 66.6, it creates depression?
Wow.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know if it's true. I don't have a wavelength transmitter to blast 66.6 megahertz at someone. But then if you do, then you've obviously got 432 or whatever for a lot of the meditation stuff.
The magic,
to work at, and the magic frequency. There's all this stuff. But this article was about the actual science behind it and the fact that they've been creating it and they've been trying it, and that the sun apparently, and you probably know a little bit about this, but the sun apparently puts out a frequency too. And is it the show there? What's it called? Have you seen that thing that's what do they call it, man? It's like a Germanic surname, something frequency.
The Schumann resonance. Schumann resonance. Yeah. There's like a Twitter feed that has somewhere in Russia that actually has the Schumann. They measure the Schumann resonance and it spikes and stuff. And yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't remember what the basics of it. I find it because it's fascinating. Yeah.
No, but I know exactly what you're getting at, because Tesla had that whole wireless transmission of energy, and he shut that shit down because he was using the ionosphere to transmit it. So the bubble around the Earth to transmit the electricity, and then basically everybody just had a receiver. But he figured out that the frequency he was transmitted at was like everybody else's frequency that your brains operate on the planet. Yeah, it was like 500. It was like 413, or I can't remember what it is. It's like some kind of frequency that your brain frequencies at. And he's like, if I did it, it would just make the whole fucking world go mad.
Yeah.
Seriously. And he was like, I can't do it, because I mean, the wireless electricity would be awesome, but it's the same frequency as humans, so it just fucks everybody.
Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it, man?
Yeah, I mean, you look at HARP and all the other shit the Americans are doing. They've pushed the ionosphere out with high electromagnetic frequencies. I mean, you can do all kinds of shit, right? I
mean, I try and keep my personal conspiracies like down to my UFO stuff, because otherwise I get confused with which one I'm on.
No, I know. I'm right there with you, man. I've jumped into too many holes, man. I know.
When you get into the HARP stuff, like, because I am interested in it. I am, because I know that there's some really good stuff around it, but I don't know, man. Like, I've thrown myself down.
It goes all the way. Yeah, it goes all the way down to the vibrations of frequency. That's what Tesla said. You want to know the secrets of the universe? It's vibration, frequency, and I think sound vibrations, frequency, something like that.
Do you think he was a Rosicrucian dude?
I don't know. I think Tesla was his own dude. I think Tesla was one of those guys that either was a contactee, was touched. Like I often wonder that if his brain maybe frequent, like we're just talking about, was turned on for the DMT thing. Like I wonder if something with this physiologically or even if it wasn't physically, but like maybe something either happened to him or somebody communicated with him, it was just connected to something that completely different. And there's people like that that've been out there. There's people out there like that right now all over the place. I mean, there's people that are just, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just a certain type of just something different, but I think they are. And I think those people they shy away from everything. They're just like, I don't want to be part of any. I just want to do whatever the fuck I'm doing and everything. Just fuck off for everything else,
Yeah. I mean, you see these people, don't you, over time, just like these gifted people, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I did a bit of research into Tesla, just the background of him. Like, I tried to find out a little more about him. I know that he was spending a lot of time with this Swami guy, like this in India. He went over to India for some time, and he was a Rosicrucian. So I don't know if Tesla ever became one, but I know that he was associating with
the guy who was,
sages. Like, it's kind of cool, man.
Yeah, but, dude. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff, that I mean, he like basically he got the idea for Elsinore Current when he was walking in, in the park, and it just came to him, and it like, and he had all of his shit too that he said he's like I really don't have to do any experiments because I fully think of it, go through the entire thing in my mind, every iteration I could possibly come up with, where it's going to break, fail, and then when I'm done, I just build it.
Yeah.
It's like. Where Edison would build the same thing 5 billion fucking times until it breaks and then just not still work, and Tesla's just like, He's just sitting there going, oh, okay, I fixed it. So I mean, he's operating at a different wavelength, I mean, there's people like that all over that we just don't know about, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like geniuses.
Yeah. I mean, just amazing. Like kids, you see some of these kids that can speak 5 languages. And that's another thing, man. One of those things that they kind of just bizarre, and I can't remember the actual term for it, but it's like you get hit in the head and then you can speak French fluently.
Yeah,
have you seen that? You know what I mean? Like where you get like a head injury, but then you speak 5 languages. You can do computational math that you can never do before. Like I think it's called Savant. It's genius savant syndrome or something like that, where basically you have a head injury and now you're a genius, and it's
that's the head injury you want.
Right? Yeah, right. You don't want the other one, right? I've unfortunately had the other one enough that I just
damn it. But maybe all what that's doing is literally flicking your personal FM receiver over to
totally the channel,
the astral. Like some people are like, oh, they've knocked their frequency out and they're going to be a vegetable for the rest of their life. Some people, maybe it's just like, oh yeah. But again, like with the idea that people get turned onto this stuff through emotional pain, shocks your system, like kind of PTSD, and whether it's physical or whether it's mental trauma, open this stuff up. Like, so maybe that's a big part of it. You never know, man.
Oh, dude, I think so. I think it's a lot of it. I think it's, I don't know. I really think that we're just receptors to that's always there. Like that whole, everything's there. And I think we're just, like we're feeding into it, like the eyes, like you're talking about, we're feeding into it and we're supplying back to it. But I think the trick is to have it come back, have it come back in and help you down instead of just feeding it back up. That's the key, I think. And I think it happens at times. Meditation will do it, like other things will do it, emotional trauma, things like that, empathy,
What's the biggest curse of being a human now? I mean, if we're the eyes of God or a God, and the only purpose of our existence is to reflect back the beauty or not of the creation of the all, of the one. All right, so if that's how it is, once you realize that and actually can become that, you cease to stop. Is that it? Do you believe? I don't know. It's a tough one for me because I was thinking about this the other day. Because like the idea of it, I know that when you get into like the psychology stuff again, like and I've been reading a lot of Jung recently. Because you probably noticed.
Oh, I know.
But that idea of separating your levels of self down to the final ego or above your ego and the id and so on, like there is that element, like, and again, like you read about this a lot with psychedelics where people can step above 2 steps above their own ego,
right?
So what they are and the thing that separates them from everybody else is suddenly removed.
It's ego death, I think is what they call it, right?
That's it, but there's different levels. So it's like, so if you can take ego death, you might get to the point where you're in ego death, but you still got some concept of what you used to be.
Right.
When you remove yourself from even that, where the concept of the individual's gone completely, and
that's probably like enlightenment, man. I think that's probably the top.
I think that's probably the top. Yeah, I think that probably is the top. But people talk about that being easier to fathom whilst under the influence of something like psilocybin,
right.
People can do it without the years and years of practice.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and I fully believe that, man. Totally. I do. I do.
It's really interesting, man. Like, because I'm not like a major tripper or anything.
Right.
Like, but I do believe that to some degree.
No, I believe it too, man. No, I believe it. No, I thought I heard somebody walking up behind me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's an alien.
See? Shit. It wasn't the government.
yeah.
Fuck it. I can bring it. All the aliens can come. Just I don't want the guys in the suits.
Jim Summervan.
Fucking. He wants to have dinner. Fucking guy.
Yeah, he wants to have dinner. He wants to talk about last year's experiences.
Yeah. No shit. Oh no, man. No, I think that's it, man. No, man. This is awesome. It's been a really good talk, dude.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's rad.
I know I go off on tangents, man.
No, it's great.
My memory's poor, man.
No, mine is too, dude. No, it's good. I think we all, it always ends up to the same we're going to in the same spot. I mean, I don't think you and I differ on any of the type of beliefs that we have, or at least the ideas. I mean, we don't have the same ideas. We still can appreciate and understand and go with what the other person is going towards and for. And we've read enough that know that, you know, that what we've been taught isn't true per se.
Well, yeah.
You know, and that there's more to everything than this. So maybe we'll get there, man. I mean, maybe we will.
I think that, like, it's, for me, it's as simple as just understanding that the West don't automatically know everything just because we're the West.
Totally.
I mean, like, you go to the East, you go to like India, and you go to Tibet and Nepal and parts of China, and
completely different
this stuff
mindset.
to them is normal.
Yeah.
You know, like having a shrine and constantly being in communion with your chosen deity, or meditating every day, like,
it doesn't exist here.
Yeah, no, in our world, you do that. It's you've made a choice to do that. It's not. So that would be a new choice, something to build on your internal subconsciousness. Whereas if you're born in China and you do Tai Chi in the park every day and you meditate, or you're born in Tibet and you take it even further.
Right.
None of that is a mystery. So your conscious collective amongst that group of people must be very different to the other one. I mean, Are they getting these women, the lady?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, does a Tibetan see the lady? And if they do, is it the lady?
Right. And that was my thing. Is it the lady? I mean, I guess they keep pushing the divine feminine, you know, that's been missing from the Trinity and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, is there, my original thesis, the theory behind the whole thing was that it came to you as whatever you perceived it to be, whatever made sense to you. Like if you were Catholic, it came to you as the Virgin Mary. If you were, you know, whatever else, it came to you as what you could understand it to be, you know. And Macmillan said that one time, like one of the interviews, which is weird. I mean, it's kind of pull that back into UFOs, was that, you know, that whatever they had, it appeared like the craft, the machine, it was a physical thing, but it appeared to each individual person as what you needed it to be for you, like visually, like whatever, right? Like, so like it's, you know, it's a craft, it's a UFO to somebody, but then somebody else, it's a ball, or, you know what I mean? Like it just, I mean, I feel like it has the wherewithal to understand what you're not going to freak out about, or like what you need to make that connection, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And
so that's kind of where I'm like, maybe it goes to be you as Buddha, if you're a Buddhist, or, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, I don't know, it's weird. Like, and again, I don't know. I am stuck on this thing at the minute with the collective unconscious. You know.
No. That's the thing. I mean, if you could hit that, if you have these weird, you know, those egregores, you know, like if you understand the concept of an egregore, I don't know if we've talked about it, but basically it's a space. An egregore is there's a book that's out, but there's an egregore is basically like, so you go to a church, and a church is an egregore because everybody's collective emotions and conscious and subconscious in that place has a resonance, and it stays inside of that building. It's basically like an egregore, right? So it's like a living kind of emotion. Like, you know, when you go into church, you feel like it's a holy place, or you like go into a bar and you feel like you're going to get, you know, drunk, or, you know, it kind of has that these physical places have like spiritual or emotional imprints on them, and that's kind of what an egregore is, right? So if the egregore of a church is different, and then but they're movable. Like you can, if you remove the person or the people or the feelings from that, it can leave that place. You know, it's not static in there forever. You know, and I think maybe
travels with people.
Yeah. Or, you know, you have to have enough people in there believing the same thing or doing the same thing and kind of feeling, you know, like you. It's a collective space. Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
The vibe's gonna be totally different.
Totally different, right? Yeah. So like maybe the collectively, like you have the Tibetans believing all this stuff, and the people in India and all this stuff, but then the Americans are here. I think maybe we need to get to that whole collective egregore where it's like everything is kind of, and I think it's kind of happening whether we like it or not. People are seeing shit, and maybe UFOs are the gateway to that.
Yeah, well, I think that. Well, yeah, I mean, the UFOs, like, again. Yeah, because part of me is like feels like they're again a manifestation.
Yeah,
but that doesn't make them any less real.
No.
Like, you manifest them, and they become real. And
like I think the gateway drug is the orange orb is your gateway drug, and then after that is a disc, and then after that it's a white lady. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's whatever you have to, whatever you can perceive.
But I mean, I'm guessing that once you head down that route and you open yourself up to that and you start looking for it, like it's like modern shamanism, isn't it? Really,
totally.
Like,
yeah.
It's like, right, and because that's the way it takes you. It's like, well, unless you're going to dance around the subject and really be on the superficial of it, that's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you actually want to dig into your own experiences, if you've had one, it always seems to go. You have to go a lot deeper than who covered that up in 1975, what radar technology picked up that. It's like you have to read thousands of years of literature.
Yeah, no, and you know, it's just as easy. I was talking about this the other night too with a buddy of mine, but like, you know, ghosts and all that stuff kind of plays into the whole thing too. I mean, the ghost thing, I think, is people want to know that there's something else. Like people that believe in ghosts and don't necessarily believe in UFOs, which I find hilarious, right? But people that believe in ghosts, my theory is that they want to know that there's an afterlife. They want to know that there's somebody there because they're holding on to that thing that maybe these people are the dead people that are still here. And I think that's part of the, you know, the thing, but you take it a step far from that. I had, you know, I saw ghosts and shit when I was a kid, and, you know, I met a lady who was, I don't know, she wrote a bunch of books and stuff in Ohio. It was like called Haunted Ohio. Her name was Chris Woodyard. And I met her when I was at the radio station, and, you know, we did like a Halloween thing. We had her come in, you know, tell us this stuff. And I had seen some really crazy shit in the building, the 1800s building that I was in when I was, you know, on the radio at night. And I was like, you know, it shook me, you know, and I really had like sleep paralysis and stuff, you know, that night, you know, at the studio and stuff. And I told her, I said, I've been seeing this shit, you know, and all this stuff. And she's like, look, you can turn it off if you want to. Just stop. You just don't. If you don't want to see anymore, you don't have to see anymore. She's like, just don't. If you don't, just tell them to fuck off, and you just don't have to see it, and then you won't. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. I'm like, it's that easy. She's like, yeah. She's like, if you want to, then you will, and if you don't, you don't. I'm like, cool. So, you know, I'm like, at that point in my life, I was like, I'm tired of this shit. Like, I'm done. So I just like, I'm like, okay, cool. And then I didn't see shit.
How long ago was that?
That was like 1998, right?
All right.
So it was like, I was like 17, 18. I was like, man, this is freaking me out. I don't want to see this shit, you know? But I mean,
that was obviously when you first opened yourself up to it then.
Yeah. I was just like, I basically had this conversation with her off the air. We weren't on the air, you know, it was just her and I in this room. And I'm like, look, and she's like, no, literally you can just turn it off and you don't have to see it. And I did. And I kind of feel like now, like I'm letting myself back into it, you know, to the whole thing, but it's, you know, like,
yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. Like, and I think you probably, even though you were sort of saying about you had your experience again last year, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you had a sighting last year.
Yeah. It was this July. Yeah. This summer. Yeah. And then last year too. Yeah. Last year was the first time. And then this summer again. Yeah. So 2 years
similar
now.
to me. And so like, the 2 consecutive years, and then COVID comes. So then you immerse yourself more in the online world and you're back in this.
Right.
But like something's been going on, because there's been lots of people that sound like you and me who have had something when they were younger.
Shut it off.
And it shut it off, and then it's happened again. But like, you know, that advice that she gave you, someone gave me the same advice last year when I was really struggling with it.
Wow, they're just like, just turn it off and it'll go off.
Because I didn't like, that's like I said, like it, you know, my thing was it was beautiful at times, but it's so incompatible with day-to-day life. Like, unless you live out like in a commune somewhere.
You just can't hang with that.
Get crazy, man. Like, but and it was like, this is not compatible with my life, and it was every day just like messages, and, which seemed to check out too. It's like, you know, this is nuts. I remember going to see a lady, and she's a Reiki master.
Oh yeah.
But she was just like, and I told her, I just was like, listen, this is what's going on with me, and like she was just the same thing. You can just stop it. Like, you're the person that you basically opened the doorway for whatever reason.
And you can turn it off too. And I feel like it's easier to turn the shit off than it is to turn it back on.
Oh yeah. Turn it back.
Turn it back on is a journey.
If you turn it off, right? Because it does suck. Well, you know, in the end, like, parts of it do. It's just like, this is not compatible. Right? It's like, well, like I said to you, it's like, for me, when I was really going through it, I was like, this is not so far from being compatible that I might have to change my entire life. It was terrifying. I didn't ask for that.
Right.
So then when it started to fade off, I was grateful. Now, you know, like sometime later, I'm like, oh man, it's almost like a drug. It's like,
you gotta get back into it.
Yeah, you want to, because it is, some of it's, when it's actually happening, it's beautiful.
Right. You made it through, and you know it's not going to destroy you.
Well, I think I've learned that both of us are older.
Yeah.
So like, and you look at it as well, and like, especially as well if you're into the occult or you're going down the Rosicrucian route, and
Yeah.
you start to look at it and go, there's so many more levels.
Yeah. That we can even perceive.
That
Yeah.
we can't perceive. Yeah. And like,
Yeah.
and if I want to, you know, if I just accept that, then the idea that these crazy things have happened or do happen aren't as scary.
And they're not as scary or as crazy as we think.
No. Like, I mean, it's like this idea, like this more modern idea where people are becoming way more switched on to the idea of telekinesis or
Yeah.
psychic ability.
Yeah.
And connection. Again, this comes back to the oneness vibe. It's been awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It is.
Cheers.
Cheers to you.
Tally ho. Old chap.
No, man. Thanks a bunch. I'm sorry, man. I got to cut it, but no, totally. Yeah. I think we should do it again soon, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.